What's up, everyone? My name is Wes, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For today's episode, I got to chat with Minneapolis dance pop artist SYM1. After releasing a string of stellar singles and a remix, her debut EP, All That You Want, came out at the end of March 2022. We talked about the EP's closely collaborative creation process, the moments of inspiration that led to these songs, the vibrant aesthetic of her music and visuals, and a whole lot more. Without further ado, here's my interview with SYM1 on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How are you doing on this Sunday morning?
I'm doing great, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So just to get things started, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you had to kind of summarize the SYM1 project in maybe like a sentence or two in your own words, that would be a great time to do that.
Yeah. Hi, I'm SYM1, and I am a electropop artist from the Twin Cities. With this new EP, kind of been exploring a variety of different sounds. Each song is very different from the other, but I definitely explore like hyperpop adjacent works, anything that pushes the boundaries of pop music. What's going to be the next thing that we're all going to get down on the dance floor to is what I'm excited about. Y2K aesthetics, especially. Futuristic always.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We'll definitely get more into both the musical and the visual aesthetic in a bit.
Yes.
So I'm curious, when did you really first connect with music? Maybe when you were growing up, and around that time, this is maybe a very distinct feeling, but when did you first feel like kind of music was yours instead of just like something that was in the world around you? Like you just really kind of held it close to yourself. Maybe there isn't like a distinct moment, but just kind of those childhood or growing up experiences that kind of informed the listener and artist you are now.
Well, there are kind of three areas where I was definitely very influenced by music in my childhood, like early childhood. Top one is going to be my mom's gymnastics playlist. She was a major gymnast at the U of M, and she would splice together her own music. Like back in the day, she'd actually like cut together her own tapes.
With the tape? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And so I have very strong memories of watching her do choreography to her routines, and also just having fun with me as I'd watch her do that and kind of dance along with her. So big things that were on her playlist were NSYNC, Sean Paul, Serena Paris, and a lot of other dance and electronic mixes. Yeah. And then I was very heavily influenced by Sailor Moon, the Sailor Moon theme song. All that magical girl aesthetic and the just like over exaggerated kind of theatrics of that show I was really into. And then,
do you have a favorite one of the sailors, one of the magical girls? I think there's a bunch. I'm not super familiar, but
I mean, right. I mean, I feel like I have to go with Sailor Moon. Like I've always thought about it, like, but I always go back to Sailor Moon.
Yeah,
I got to do it.
She's the classic.
She is. And then I watched the Labyrinth nearly every day.
With David Bowie.
With David Bowie.
That's awesome. It's a weird movie when you're a kid.
Truly, but I was obsessed with it. So that also was very strong.
Yeah. Kind of once you were starting to absorb these kind of musical touchstones, at what point did you first start thinking about, hey, I want to make my own music. I want to take some of these sounds and see what I can do with them, and just writing the music that maybe is not, that didn't become part of the SYM1 project, those very early kind of forays into songwriting and producing?
Yeah, I mean, I was always singing as a kid, and my dad actually really encouraged me to pursue that. he would always ask me, "Is that something that you'd like to do?" And I'd say, "Yes, I'd love to do that. That's like definitely something I can always see myself loving." And he said, "All right, well then you're gonna have to start booking some shows." And I'm like 11 at this point in time, and he gives me a yellow pages. And he's like, "All right, start calling up some venues, community spaces, nursing homes, and just let them know how long you're going to perform for and what your rates are." And I'm like, "I can't do that. I'm
Asking a lot,
11."
yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, "That's why you're going to get booked." So I did end up doing that, calling places, being like, "Hi, I'm 11." And I think people were nicer to me because of that. So that was
Yeah.
nice. But I did like get my first taste of booking shows at 11 because of my
Yeah.
dad.
What were you
Um,
singing or performing at these like little events or shows? Like, were you already writing originals, or probably like some covers?
Definitely some covers. I was downloading, yeah. I would go to the library and burn their
Their CDs.
instrumental tracks onto my own CDs.
Okay.
And then I would take that. And it was mostly Britney Spears and theater numbers that I really loved. So that's what that ended up
Incredible.
being. Yeah.
When did you first start kind of making your own music? I'm guessing probably like already were in the performing space, already getting used to that really early on.
Yeah.
When did it first kind of hit you that you're like, wait, I can write my own songs instead of just singing over the instrumental tracks or doing show tune covers, as fun as I'm sure those were at the time?
Right. It took actually quite a long time to
Okay.
figure out how to do the music that I wanted. And then past that, how to learn to develop my own sound and people who would understand my sound. Because using software like a digital audio workstation to create your own music is really difficult, and it's going to take a number of years to figure out. And I didn't know that at the time, but I was finally like 18 when I was like, all right, I know that even though it's going to be difficult, I want to do music and pursue that as a career and as something that I'm always passionate about. And so I dropped out of the nurse practitioner program I was in at the time. So I was doing PSEO and I was whatever
Where at?
worried. Yeah. Just worried about, or where at?
Yeah, where were you doing PSEO?
Metro State.
Okay, cool.
So I dropped that. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I started pursuing music more full time in a sense. I mean, I was obviously doing stuff at the same time, but I just started connecting with any and everybody that I knew was producing electronic music. And I met up with my now best friend, who's also a producer of mine. I died. And we really worked together heavily. I would just watch him and how he produces. He went to IPR here. So it took dropping out and just reaching out into the ether of like belief and faith that something would happen. So just asking for help really was what that part was all about in my life.
Yeah, that's very important. This is kind of twofold. It sounds like you had a pretty clear idea of what kind of music you wanted to make. When did your heart kind of land on making some form of like electronic and dance music and just kind of involving dance and that kind of sound? And once you kind of did decide to start pursuing music more full time and connected with iDied and so on, when did the SYM1 project kind of musically and visually start to solidify? Maybe just even internally, just in your own mind.
Don't know if I've landed on electronic music like solidly knowing what my sound was going to be like. In fact, I was still working with a lot of producers back at that time that I met iDied, trying to figure out what type of electronic music I even wanted to pursue. Like there's so many different genres, subgenres within that space that I was like, what is it that I'm actually trying to do? And because of that, I actually had a previous artist name that I used to go by that I've now since dropped because it's connected with not knowing exactly what I wanted to pursue, as well as other toxic traits I was carrying in myself. So I just wanted to get rid of that overall and start over with the name SYM1 because that is actually always a name that I wanted to eventually have. And now taking it on, knowing myself more, I actually made that change at the end of 2018. So that is how I reached this stage, going through that process of trial and error, not knowing myself, being really toxic, and then getting here.
Yeah. All kind of the negativity of, and like the kind of the negative side of like looking back at kind of a time where you were undergoing a lot of growth, we could say.
Yes. That's a good way of putting it.
From that period of just kind of just going about and like going about your life in music, what are there any things that stuck with you that I guess more positively influenced and kind of helped you learn more about what you wanted to do with the current phase of the project, with the current name you're using, and just kind of the field you've been working in with this artist name for the last few years?
I think what really helped me to grow out of that previous phase of my life was recognizing that my lifestyle was not sustainable, and then recognizing that there aren't a lot of great systems here for how to be a successful artist. A lot that exists here is really dog eat dog. And it can feel like we're all fighting each other in order for someone to be at the top, and it doesn't have to be that way. So at the beginning of 2019, I started with a group of artists and creatives, a event series called Placebo. And with that, I met my business partner now, Kelsey Jo Geiger. And she is an incredible influence on me, a music industry expert. She teaches at IPR. She's just like great with artist management and just so understanding when it comes to connecting with people and artists. So she's an incredible influence on me. And I mean, we've known each other previously to that, but this was the first time we really worked together closely. So yes, that made a huge change within me. And then also giving back by producing these events and having the goal of seeing up and coming artists get bigger, get stronger, and to help their process was something that I think also very much positively influenced me. And so not having the focus so much on myself and seeing that we can all be in this together was something that really, I think, changed my perspective and my insecurities and the ego that I was carrying from before. I mean, it's definitely still there, but it's just not as big, which is good.
It's a very human aspect. It's not really going to leave completely. You just have to make it manageable.
Right.
With those placebo events, where what event space are you using for those? Like, how has that been? What has that started up? I guess since the pandemic has kind of become quote unquote more manageable again, or was it just kind of for that brief time, starting in 2019, going through early 2020? Just talk a little bit more about placebo. That sounds like interesting.
Yeah. Placebo eventually turned into Placebo Records, but we were throwing events in the Red Room of the Loring, which is now called Gray's. And from the Red Room, we started getting connected to more popular artists, such as Dorian Electra. And so we brought Dorian through, and through a larger event during that period, and threw it in the main room at the Loring of the time. Then from there, we realized that having national presences connected to our local scene would help our scene a lot. So we started also doing focus there, and kind of meshing our two scenes, trying to get people more connected with each other. So we also started throwing events at the Ice House at the end of 2019, again with Dorian Electra and Mood Killer. Then pretty much right after that was the pandemic. We didn't really know what to do for a long time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was applying for grants like crazy during that time period because there was really nothing else to do but hope and like think of ideas. And I ended up getting one for Placebo Records to develop a virtual venue. So we do still have this virtual venue, but by the time that I received the grant, like knew that I was getting it and received it and developed the virtual venue, things had already started to open up. And people were less interested in a virtual presence. But I think there's still a lot of potential for it. And that virtual venue is called Fantasy, spelled with a PH and two I's at the end. Because it has to be weird. But Placebo Records now runs a virtual venue as well, as we will still continue to do in-person events. Just getting linked with venues again, and feeling comfortable about throwing them has been not an easy process, to say the least.
Yeah. And just kind of figuring out each ongoing stage and trying to like reestablish those same connections is not easy.
No,
I definitely feel that. Okay, cool. Let's jump kind of into the music for a little bit.
Yeah.
So you mentioned just first linking with kind of Placebo and establishing that late 2018, early 2019. The first single, at least, that you released under SYM1, under this moniker, Dark Matter, in June 2019. It's your debut single and video, at least to my eyes, just kind of going through the whole rabbit hole of everything. I think very immediately establishes kind of a very distinct visual and musical style, even as once you get to the EP, it continues to shift and kind of shimmer. But looking back, especially just almost three years later, oh dear.
I know.
That doesn't feel real. But looking back on that, it's not the remix, well, we can talk about that too, but just the original version of the song. Mm-hmm. How do you still view that as just kind of your debut work, I guess, to put it in the most lofty terms possible? And just kind of how has your perspective on that song and that era of your artistry changed now that you've continued to grow and just evolve past that even? Maybe not past that in a negative sense, though.
Right, yes. I view Dark Matter with such love and something that still I am connected to. It's while writing it, I and I both wrote it. It was almost like we were in a trance of this had to be created now. Like we were up at like 5 a.m. doing this, like desperately making this happen. And it all started from I was recording little snippets into my phone at the time. When I'd dream, I'd hear just little melodies at this time. And so I'd like wake up in a sweat being like, okay.
Voicemail, yeah.
And that was all that was in the recording. And I told Will, I died, that I had this recording, and I was like, okay, let's like look through my notes. I think I got this good one. And then he heard that, and like immediately knew what to do with it. So
Wow.
it just like started going, and I'm just like, wait. And,
Slow down.
yeah, but it was like done in a night. And we had never done that before. So I know that dark matter is very important and special. And even the lyrics just came naturally, as if like we were just vessels for this song to get out through. Like it actually felt crazy. But it was so amazing. But songs that happen like in that way, I think are very important and special and honestly timeless. So I don't feel like I've evolved necessarily past dark matter. I feel like dark matter is always a touching stone for me.
It's a very active continuation, I think, is maybe a better way of putting it.
Definitely.
Maybe this is just jumping ahead a little bit, but with your songwriting and just kind of how musical inspiration hits you, it has this kind of very transcendent, like, kind of, you feel possessed by the need to make this song. Like, has that been a little more common? Is that kind of, you just need to wait until the right inspiration strikes? Or has that just been one of the ways you've approached songwriting and approached making the other songs that would end up on the EP or be released elsewhere? Because I would imagine that, like, if that is like this like hand of God kind of inspiration just keeps coming to you, I'm like, you're hogging it. That's crazy. This just keeps happening.
Right. I mean, it definitely is a rare thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it happens, it's like, oh, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
this is so special. But it can always be, it can always come around more often by actually getting in front of the computer and opening up Ableton.
At least getting those first steps taken care of.
Right.
Yeah.
If I don't do that, then there's no chance at all that's going to happen.
Yeah. Not every song can come in a dream.
Right. Yes, truly. But when it does, that's amazing.
Yes.
Midnight Crush is one of them that came to me like that.
Mm-hmm.
Up at 4 a.m, just did the whole thing right then and there. So that was really cool.
that feels fitting given the kind of the lyrics and the theme of the song, especially just that late night kind of awakening, I guess, for lack of a better word. Jumping back to dark matter for just a brief second. I specifically did want to ask about the remix, which came out about 2 years later. More just, I guess, the idea about remixes, since these are obviously two folks that you've collaborated with before and continue to work with. It's with I Died, and then Trenton Abbott did the remix.
Yes.
With remixing, is that something you are continuing to want to do and kind of try out, especially given how collaborative the EP was? Or was that more of a very special one-off situation with some people that you already knew that you really trusted?
I definitely would love to keep doing remixes. I think that would be so fun and a way to keep the music fresh, a way to see it through new eyes. I think would be so amazing. I'm always down for collaboration, and the more like I can have my music go through someone else's eyes that reaches new audiences, new people, that's definitely very beneficial and fun for me to see how it could be developed into something new.
Yeah, just
I'm not the best at what I do.
Yeah. Just leaving it that openness, I guess. Like, you just like, here you go.
Yes.
Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm so down for that.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening, start shooting some emails if you want to get some remixes or whatnot. Yeah. All right, let's jump up to a little bit more recently. All That You Want is your first EP. It just came out about a month ago from when we're recording at the end of March 2022. Just kind of speaking broadly, when did you first start writing these songs? I guess you could talk a little bit more about Midnight Crush, but since that was more like in the moment inspiration. But with the other songs, when did these ideas start kind of germinating, start coming to be? And would you say that these songs have changed a lot since maybe those initial stages, or have they been pretty well defined from your kind of first moments of putting them together lyrically, musically, and so on?
Yeah. Actually, the timeline is quite all over the
I
place with
believe it.
this EP. And a lot of them are uh, finally being released after, I think all of them are definitely at least a year old. The pandemic really, added on a couple years, but uh, it's still, I waited on them because they finally are now being like produced to the level that I want them to be produced at. And the way I record is much different too. And I have Ro to thank for that. Ro Lorenzen she's one of the producers on the EP. And I'm just so happy about the way that I've developed because I feel like I'm now singing and recording the way that I want it to sound. So that's really cool. And everyone that I work with is like really come into their own and developed all of their own set of skills. So it's really just good timing. But specifically, Lonely Nights is actually like 7 years old.
Really? Okay.
That one is actually produced originally by Trenton Abbott, which I then had Ro reproduce because we didn't have the original file. And then what else? All That You Want is produced by Shading the Sun, and he developed that at the end of 2019. He had like a piece of it done, but that's gone through its own kind of journey to come into what it is today. I kept on kind of directing the sound to go in a more glitchy, dancey space, whereas before I think it was more in a it was more in a like more atmospheric kind of space. But yeah, most of these songs are quite old. This Week in the News is like from 2017.
Okay.
Just all of these are finally finished.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nice to see them come to light.
Yeah, I can't imagine. With approaching these songs, I guess, like especially as they've become more solidified, at least in the last couple of years, I kind of want to just use your phrase, like when you've been approaching them, do you approach it more like you're kind of directing the overall vision and like obviously like singing and then writing the lyrics, and then the music is kind of provided by some of your like the collaborators, at least the ones that are on the EP that are produced entirely by someone else or are like co-productions, or I guess typically how have you approached these kinds of songs? Is it where the music is kind of being handled by someone else, and obviously you still want to be very involved with that project and that process?
Definitely. Yeah. So honestly, any way that I can get it done that I feel like fits into what I'm trying to portray, I will pursue that.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty much overall. But yes, as you were saying, I think definitely I kind of more so guide in the direction when someone is either co-producing or fully producing a song of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I want to make sure that it is fitting into what my vision is for whatever I want works to be under for my name. But Midnight Crush was already like produced by me and then was handed off to Ro to up the level of the sonic quality, because I'm not the best producer. I can get my ideas out and then I'm like, dang, I know these sounds could be better. And she knows how to take them there.
Yes.
So I'm very appreciative for that. And, I'm still growing. I have all the time in the world to get better and eventually be able to portray and express exactly what sounds I want to hear in the future. But it takes time. It just takes time. And if you don't have enough of that and you don't want a 7-year-old song sitting on the back burner, you can give it to someone else.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting since collaboration is so kind of built into this EP. Is working towards like self-producing, I guess, more something that you're trying to like you aim to do? Because that I guess would theoretically, maybe I'm just being closed-minded here, would kind of decrease the amount of space for collaboration if you're like composing and producing everything and just completing that vision more fully on your own as you just continue to grow as a musician and writer. But yeah, is this something you're trying to work towards, or just more of like a kind of long-term goal where you're like, I'm going to continue to up the game, continue to try to evolve as a performer, just kind of more of like a just kind of way to fuel your musical growth and whatnot? That was kind of a
Yeah.
long-winded question. Sorry.
No, good. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, just in as a consequence to being able to self-produce, there wouldn't be as much opportunity. But I definitely still want to hold that space to be able to collaborate with other people because that is what fulfills me. Like, don't get me wrong, being able to produce on my own is very fun, but it is such a like almost trance-like space where it's just like, all right, it's just me
Yeah.
in a room for hours.
Losing a
And
little bit.
yeah, yes. And it can get a little dull. You can self-doubt and question what different directions that you're going in, if they're the right ones or not. And
Hmm.
collaborating with other people, I just think is so much more. Uh, it's just so much more fun and fulfilling
Hmm.
at the end of the day. And so I definitely am working towards being able to self-produce though. I
Yeah.
want to have a specific sound that is solidly mine where people can listen to it and understand, okay,
Hmm.
that's definitely SYM1.
Yeah.
But collaborating is not going to ever be
Yeah.
um, like a no-go for me
Hmm.
just because I can self-produce.
Yeah. It's something to work towards where that's an option that you can do, where you
Yes.
have the confidence where you're like, I can just put something together on my own. And also maybe that gives your collaborators kind of a more distinct way to kind of bring them into your world and kind of bring them as like,
Yeah.
here's my sound. Here's kind of how I am currently envisioning it. Let's make something kind of this is in this vein while still like making
Yeah.
room for both artists or however many collaborators are
Totally.
involved. Because why leave
And
it
what
at
about
two?
right? And like, what about people who are like in my position now? Like, I would love to be able to be at the point where I can self-produce and then carry someone else into the space that they want to get to.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's just like a constant process of helping each other.
yeah,
So it's
exactly.
cool.
Um, Kind of just continuing on self production. The one song on the EP that is entirely self produced is just From Here to There. Talk a little bit about how that song came about. Was that another older track that was kind of revitalized and given its maximum potential for the EP, or is that a newer one? Talk a little bit about that track.
Yeah. So Roe already had that one,
Okay.
like pretty much done and ready to go as an instrumental
Okay.
at the end of 2019. And so I'd heard that song and I was like, uh, this is amazing. I want to do something with it. Maybe it was actually a bit earlier that I was thinking that, and she showed me it. But I know I was holding on to it for a while because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it yet.
Hmm.
Um, and then finally, throughout the pandemic, we kind of sat down with each other, went on Zoom calls, and figured out, okay, here's like a direction this could go in. I kind of pitched the idea as well to iDied and asked his thoughts on what vocal melodies could be right or wrong because I second guess myself all the time when it comes to my lyrics and melodies. So
Yeah. Um. Cool. With kind of, we already touched on Lonely Nights a little bit.
yes.
But I wanted to ask even more about that just because it's kind of in such a unique situation where it was composed musically so long ago by one person, then
Yes.
reproduced by another person, and then
Hmm.
Will I Died wrote the lyrics as well.
Hmm.
Um, so this kind of feels like almost the kind of the perfection of you being the director of the song, where you're the lead artist. You're still like kind of control, like not controlling, I say, but the vision is yours. It's fully what you wanted to come
Right.
out with, but involving so many other people over time. At least only three. That still feels like a lot. But just talk a little bit about kind of the experience of making that song and coming into it with pretty much most of it already existing outside of what you wanted to kind of add on like a widescreen level.
Well, first off, I have to say that Lonely Nights is like, if my music were to be a movie, or some sort of series, Lonely Nights would be the prequel to Dark Matter.
Cool. Okay.
That song Will showed me first. And it wasn't done. It was just an instrumental by Trenton Abbott, but Will had wrote lyrics to it. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm seeing something.
Yeah.
Like I see the Matrix. I'm seeing the future. What is happening? Like through that, I was like, I want to like have this world where anything is possible. It's in the future, or maybe it's a program. Who knows what it is? And then from that, we also wrote Dark Matter. But yeah, Lonely Nights being what it is now, I definitely feel like having so many people involved and so many pieces, you would think that it would be like overwhelming to have so many different people involved, but it was actually much easier to have everything like already done. Like, okay, you do this, you do that. I'm just going to sing.
Yeah. A little bit of stress off your shoulders for one song.
But it's also a song that just has always truly resonated with me. And so to finally have that come out too is really just incredible. Like I'm really moved by this song.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps that's why it's getting the music video treatment coming out, at least at some point soon.
It's coming out on the release, the EP release show.
Okay, that's the 26th, right?
That's right, 26th.
Awesome. May 26th at the entry, right?
Yes.
Okay. For all the listeners at home that are going to be hearing this, that's when the show is, May 26th. Also when the video's coming out. Cool. Going more broad picture, I guess, for the EP to kind of wrap things up. When did you first start to kind of conceptualize the aesthetic and kind of the visual musical style for this EP in particular? Especially since this is like now that live performance has become an aspect of the project and been something you've been able to do. How has that been involved with how you've kind of come up with the ideas for like cover art, for the visual musical styles that like you and your collaborators worked up over the many years that this EP has been in production?
I actually didn't come up with the aesthetic for these songs or like a overall picture until all of these songs were already nearly done. And which was pretty recently, like at the beginning of the year. And like I have a bunch of songs that are nearly done, but I chose these 5 because they tell a story that I wasn't sure I even wanted to bring out yet. And so this EP to me means a grieving process. And I see each of these 5 songs being the 5 stages of grief for me, and could be for everyone else too, for the many lives that we've lived and for the lives that we'll never get to live, but always hoped to. And I think it's been my way of like kind of processing what's been going on through the pandemic, throughout my life, but all through a kind of confabulation and made up story, like that's told through like a futuristic or hyper realistic lens.
Okay. Wow. That's, I mean, when you're listening to it, at least I was like, you get caught up in the emotions of the songs, but maybe you can't quite put your finger on exactly what it's touching on. So that's fascinating. I never would have guessed that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
it's a little bit deeper. Yeah.
That's like the subtext for everybody if they're like really just connecting, really like plugged in with the songs.
Yes. You can
Um,
go as deep or as surface level as you want to. Like, we don't always
yeah,
have to be,
yeah,
going too deep.
yeah. Just on surface levels, like, damn, this is catchy, but then like, really, which
Exactly.
stage of grief is this? It's both at the same
Right.
time.
It's
Um,
whatever you want it to be.
oh, there we go. Fantastic. This is another kind of general question. And maybe
Yeah.
this is something that you're still kind of aspiring towards or hasn't quite happened yet. But do you remember the first time that you really felt like the SYM1 project and kind of this artistic endeavor was accomplishing what you maybe even unconsciously wanted it to accomplish in the end? Like that really felt like, yes, we're starting to kind of touch what I wanted to get to, what I wanted to feel and kind of accomplish with this project. And obviously, it'll be an ongoing thing since you're not just stopping with this EP. But I'm curious, like, has there been a moment where you've really kind of just felt this is what I wanted this to be? This is how I wanted this to be?
Yeah, I would say actually listening to the EP before releasing it. So, like, February, I would say that with the SYM1 project, I definitely wanted to have a wider scope of what I could do. Because back under my previous iteration of my solo art journey, um, I was definitely pigeonholing myself. That I had to be this like super futuristic, all the time alien creature who could only make a specific type of electronic music, which was very boring very quickly. And so now, under this new name, I feel like I wanted to break down the aesthetics that I was pursuing, and just be able to, yeah, release myself from a cage I had created for myself. And I feel like I've definitely done that, and I feel like I recognized that in February. Just kind of listening over and over again, being like, "Is this good? Yes, this is good.
Yeah.
In fact."
You really can't understate the power of like hearing like first like final mixes or something like that of music.
Totally.
You're like, this has been in the works for so long, and this is what we've gotten to, and then being able to kind of recognize how proud of it you are. That's, I think, a really important and fantastic feeling.
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
awesome. So we already kind of talked about the release show, May 26th. But what else does the future, both immediate and distant, hold for you and the SYM1 project? Hopefully you've been able to at least take a little bit of a breather after putting out an EP. That's obviously a very large ordeal.
Yes.
But beyond that, what else have you kind of got in the works, or are you hoping to kind of move in the direction of?
I am now working on another collaborative album.
Ooh,
I got a grant to do
yeah.
one.
Oh, a separate grant. Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm very excited to do that. So right now I'm connecting with other artists, other BIPOC artists, other LGBT artists, and then just artists of my choosing who are in the pop realm or pop skewed with their music, to create something that's more full length, rather than just a 5-song EP. And it can be just like super fun and silly instead of going really introspective, like I shared with you. I want it to be way more just fun to listen to and really hone in on my sounds. I'm just really kind of diving deep into Ableton and getting out uh, what I think my style should turn into. So I'm really looking at more hyperpop adjacent works. I'm connecting with more national artists. So hoping to get some national collaborations as well on this next album.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So I like to wrap interviews up kind of in the same way, just regardless of what field of music or kind of subsection of music I find like that people are active in here in the cities or
Yeah.
in Minnesota. Um, I always find that they have really distinct people that they want to mention, that like other artists and friends and collaborators and just musicians you just love listening to. Now would be a great time to just shout them out. Like, who would you like? Should people check out? Kind of regardless of genre, but that people that you really love their music and just want to give them a shout out. Whether it's someone like Ro or Shang in the Sun that are clearly featured on the EP, and people hopefully will already have checked out based on that. But just now's a great time to kind of spread the love, you know?
Yeah. Of course, I want to shout out my 3 co-producers, I Died, Shading the Sun, and Ro. I'd love to shout out my co-stars for the EP release show on May 26th. We're doing a triple EP release show. So not only are we celebrating my EP release, we're celebrating Scraps and Diva J. And then those 2 artists are also produced by Ro, so it's kind of a presentation.
Ro Fest, if you will.
Yeah, so Ro Fest. And then I'd also love to shout out another artist that I really adore, and I can just see her music coming out of the woodwork. Lilith is also an incredible artist. And then on a more outside of a local scale, I also have been listening to artists like Kyunchi, That Kid, and Snowblood. I am so into right now. Just what they're doing is so on par with what I would love to see my music getting to. Oh, also another artist, Moist Breezy is her name. I'm
It's a great name.
Obsessed, right? It's so good. It's like, what? But yeah, Moist Breezy is also creating some amazing like Y2K rave reminiscent works. Just it's taken me back to that Euro dance scene.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Those are all the artists. Yeah.
Definitely check them all out if you're listening and you want to hear some more really cool pop and other electronic music. Where can we find you online? Just want to take a second to plug your pluggables.
Yes. All my handles are under no one but SYM1. So NO number 1, but SYM number 1.
Perfect. That's where you'll be able to stay tuned on the music video and everything else going forward. Congratulations on the EP. Thank you so much for taking
Your
time
Coffee
to
Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Your Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.